Welcome to the IGEOS Show, where we help grow the passion for an extraordinary workplace. If you're listening to or watching this, we hope to strengthen your passion for a workplace that has the potential not only to have an extraordinary impact on your life, but also on the world. My name is Amit Riker, and my co-hosts are Valerio Pascotto and Timothy Galway. Now to you, Valerio.
Thank you, Amit. What drives our efforts is really a vision and credo to enrich humaneness in the workplace. For that, we interview thought leaders who have been inspired by values of compassion, empathy, and modeling to share their discoveries, challenges, and successes. Really, there is no time like now to change the tide, from hateful divisiveness to seeking similarities, from the myth of the genius to the wisdom of humankind, and from the fears of the primitive brain to the wonder of generosity and warmth.
To support you in this work of creating extraordinary workplaces, we would like to offer you a free worksheet you can download on the 5 disciplines of a high-performance team. Just go to IGEOS.net to download the sheet and learn more about us. And now, on to our guest for today. Welcome, everybody. Welcome, conscious leaders, conscious teams. We have an amazing, very exciting guest joining us today, Lynne Twist. And I'm going to give a quick bio first. Many of you may already know her work. And for those that don't, we'll just give a quick glimpse of that. And then we're going to have a really wonderful, great conversation today. So, Lynne Twist, for more than 40 years, Lynne has been recognized as a global visionary committed to alleviating poverty, ending world hunger, and supporting social justice and environmental sustainability. From working with Mother Teresa in Calcutta to the refugee camps in Ethiopia and threatened rainforests in the Amazon, as well as guiding philanthropy with some of the world's wealthiest families, her on-the-ground work has brought her a deep understanding and knowledge of people's relationship with money. Her breadth of knowledge and experiences led her to some profound insights about the social tapestry of the world and the historical landscape of the times we're in. She's the co-founder of the Pachamama Alliance, which many of you may know her from that work, and also the founder of the Soul of Money Institute. Her compelling stories and life experiences inspired her to write her best-selling book, The Soul of Money, Transforming Your Relationships with Money and Life. She's been on the stages of TEDx, as well as co-presented and shared the stage with some of the most influential thought leaders, including Oprah Winfrey, Marianne Williamson, and His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, just to name a few. She was most recently awarded the Conscious Victory Award from Sedona, Arizona's Illuminate Film Festival in May 2018. As well as the Service Award from the America and India Foundation in March 2018. So, Lynne, it's such a pleasure to have you in. And there's so many more accomplishments and so much amazing work and contributions that you've made that could be a conversation in and of itself, but would much rather dig in and begin this conversation with you. So happy to have you. How are you?
I'm fine. Thank you so much. A wonderful opportunity to talk to you, both of you, and thank you so much for having me on your program. I'm delighted.
Thank you, Lynne.
It's our honor. It's our pleasure. So, Lynne, there's so much of your work and what you've really contributed. And rather than sort of getting into sort of a little bit of your background and history, I'd like to ask, what's something sort of on your path and journey that people may not know as much that you'd like to share, that you'd love for people to know more about?
Oh my God, I knew you'd ask provocative questions. Well, right now I'm very, through Pachamama Alliance and through our programs from Pachamama Alliance, I'm very engaged with 2 aspects of that work. We have the great privilege of working with the indigenous people of the Amazon rainforest. And we work in the Sacred Headwaters region, which is southern Ecuador and northern Peru. It's the most biodiverse ecosystem on Earth. It's the source of the whole Amazon system, which is the source of our climate. So it's a pretty important place. And we work with somewhere between 14 and 18 tribes that own their land and are fierce protectors of that ecosystem. And it's just absolutely awesome working with Indigenous people who are intact, who still live in a total concert with their traditions, in absolute harmony with the natural world. They don't live in the forest, they are of the forest. And I've learned so much from them. I'm just really in touch with it right now, actually. What a privilege it is at this chapter of my life to be working with people who didn't even know money existed, don't quite still grapple why we're so crazy for it. They say you can't hunt for it, you can't eat it. Ultimately, why do you want it? And for them, it's part of the insanity of the modern world. And they gave us the assignment when we first met with them, and they called us to them, which is a beautiful story, but to change the dream of the modern world. And that sounds kind of romantic, but I'll tell you, when you really get into what that means, I think it's probably what you're doing with this program. It's probably what you've been doing with your entire life, both of you. Changing the dream of the modern world to them is moving us out of, waking us up from the trance that we're in, that has us destroying the very life support system on which we depend and each other in the process. And so to change the dream of the modern world was a pretty tall order. When they told us to go home and change the dream of the modern world, they meant it. And it took us a while to create how to even begin. Because in order to change the dream of the modern world, you need to wake yourself up first, which is, I'm absolutely certain, which is what this program is all about. To awaken us from the trance we're living in that has us marching sort of in a numb, kind of unconscious way in behaviors and systems and structures that are so inconsistent with our humanity and that are literally endangering life on Earth, our own and millions of species. And so to tackle that has been an enormous privilege, actually, to look at it from Indigenous wisdom. They're not caught in the trance, so they can see how entranced we are, how deep the trance is, and they're not in it. So they're like a consultant, if you will. You know, when you go into a company, you're both coaches and consultants, I'm sure, and you can see the culture and you can see how stuck everybody is, and you're not stuck in it, so you can be helpful in kind of disaggregating the things that aren't working. Well, Indigenous people are like that for our entire modern world. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. They're not caught in it. They can see we are. They don't make us wrong for it, for which I'm deeply grateful. They have compassion for how intense the trance is. And their work really with us is to empower us, support us, coach us in a way to create a new dream for humanity, an environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, socially just human presence on this planet. We call that the new dream for humanity. Bringing forth an environmentally sustainable, spiritually fulfilling, socially just human presence on this planet as the new dream for humanity. And I guess I'm telling you that because I want very much to say that in business, where so much power is located, so much money is located, so much influence is located, business being the largest institution on the planet now, to have business be a huge driver of waking us up rather than putting us back to sleep so we can buy more stuff, is part of what I'm very, very excited about. And I've just joined the board of Conscious Capitalism. I think you know that. That's probably why you invited me on this wonderful program. And Raj Sisodia is a great hero of mine and friend. I'm sure he is to both of you, and Kip Tyndall and John Mackey, and to really see how when companies actually start to realize that they want to be more conscious, they actually need to wake up to what they're doing that's unconscious. And you can't see your own eyeballs. So it's so helpful to have programs like this, to have people like the two of you, to have Raj and Kip, for example, be so awake that they are inviting into the companies that are part of conscious capitalism, not only the conscious capitalism manifesto and principles, but also the work that we're doing, the Awakener, which is a 2-hour, very, very not time consuming, but very powerful way to wake people up to the environmental crisis, to wake people up to the social justice crisis, to wake people up to the crisis of meaning as all one crisis in our consciousness that we can turn around, that we can transform, that through business is probably the most powerful vehicle to create that transformation. So I'm so delighted that you asked me to be on this program so I could say that. And it's also what I'm most excited about. And and I must say, I never put together in my mind Indigenous people in business until now. But it's amazing how much they have to teach us, because they are in total consistency and communion with the natural world. And that ecosystem is the ecosystem I think we're all trying to emulate, that we're trying to find a way to organize our companies, our businesses, our lives, consistent with the natural order of nature. And Indigenous people can be the greatest consultants on earth for business. And I never knew that before. So that's what I'm excited about.
I love that. I love that response, Lynn. And I just found myself with what you were sharing, so much beautiful, so many beautiful, rich things out of there. Particularly even with mentioning with Raj, we've had the pleasure to have him on the show as well, and with his upcoming book, The Healing Organizations. And just even watching your TEDx talk on the collective dream, and just hearing that paradigm shift of, we so often think, oh, Indigenous people out there, and we, like you said, that we're not there to help them, they're there to help us realize the trance we're in. I'd love to hear a little bit more about, you said that this big aha happened recently, of how it really ties to business. And we spend the majority of our waking hours at work and in the office and whatnot. What was that, or some aspect of that that aha that came to you? Because this has been a big part of your life's work. And so where did that shift happen to the connection of, we've got to integrate it into our work, into our businesses, into our roles? I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, let me think how to answer that, because it's kind of recent. I've been an activist. I call myself a pro-activist. So let me just clear that up. I'm a pro-activist, meaning an activist for, not against. And I've been a pro-activist my whole life. I worked for the Hunger Project for many, many years, 20, 25 years, working on ending world hunger. And when you work on ending world hunger, it takes you to India, of course, Sub-Saharan Africa, India, Bangladesh, Ethiopia, Namibia, Guinea-Bissau, all those countries that suffer from severe hunger, malnutrition, and all kinds of poverty. War zones. I've been in Mozambique after the war. I was in recently in Liberia, which had a horrible war. So I've seen the dark side, you could say, and what I've found there always is inspiration. Now that sounds like an oxymoron, but when people are in enormous oppression, when people are in hunger, when they're in poverty, they need to draw on their inner life. They don't have anything out here. So they become enormously strong in their inner world, in their inner life, in their inner resources, in their strength, in their courage, in their relationships with one another. They depend on each other so deeply. So all of these years working on hunger and poverty in more than 50 countries, I saw so much beauty and resilience and courage in people living in the most unbelievably horrible circumstances. And so I have this kind of profound faith in the human spirit, that it can't be squashed. It can't be, that light can't go out. And no matter what we think we're facing of problems here in the modern world or in the more affluent world, it's nothing compared to what people have faced and gotten through in the places where I've worked. So first, I want to say that, and then I in order to work on ending world hunger, you got to raise money, and I raised hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars for the Hunger Project and trained 50,000 fundraisers. And that teaches you a lot. And the fundraisers I trained, of course, there were people in the United States and Europe, but I also trained people in Mozambique to raise money from each other after the war, rather than could they arrange themselves to get a huge USAID grant. No, some people were doing that, and God bless them for that, because that was needed. But my commitment was to have people raise money from each other in Mozambique so they could see the strength and resilience and power of each other. And so I have this huge, respect, commitment, resolve, belief in the human spirit. And as a pro-activist, often, and when I started working in the Amazon, often I would see that the activist community, whether it was the hunger or the poverty community or the community of environmentalism, made business wrong and was pitted themselves against business. A lot of campaigners that I have huge respect for have helped businesses get out of old growth forests and rethink the way they're working, but often in a way that was confronting and argumentative and from attack. And I just kind of can't do that. That's just not part of my DNA. So I was in a business conference with Raj. So this really takes me to the real answer to your question. I was with, when I'd met Raj before, but I didn't really know him. And I was in a conference in business, a business conference in Santa Barbara that was put on by the Transformational Leadership Council and the World Business Academy, and I think another organization, I can't remember which one. And for some reason they invited me. Know nothing about business, but a lot about money. I know about people and money from being a fundraiser and dealing with, fundraising all over the world. And so they asked me to do a keynote talk. And I told them I guess I'm trying to remember now really what it was, but I told them my story. I told them of what it was like to work with Mother Teresa, to have my hands in the dirt in Ethiopia after the famine, to teach people to raise money from each other after a war, to really understand the billions and billions of people on this planet. It was just filled with heart and love and courage and depth. And we call them poor when there's nothing poor about them. Their circumstances are poor, yes, but they're not poor. And to call them poor people is to demean them and to demean ourselves. Who they are some of the strongest, most innovative, most creative, most intelligent, even though many of them can't read or write, people on this planet. And how to connect the more sophisticated, educated, literate business world with those people and their beauty, their resolve, what we can learn from them. It makes me cry. I started to realize that's a huge thing that I could do. And I'm crying now again, because at the conference, I started crying like this. And there were maybe, I don't know, it wasn't a huge conference, maybe 60 or 75 or 100 CEOs. Everybody was a CEO except for me. And they were, big CEOs, big in stature and big in company and big in money. And I was kind of like, I didn't know what I was doing there, actually. And I started to talk about this, and I remember the receptivity was a shock to me, because I was so scared of talking to business people. I didn't think they would resonate with what I had to say. I didn't think I had anything to tell them. And I started to get into this thing that I'm saying to you now, where I saw maybe I could bridge this huge gap, and particularly with the activists who seem to be so angry with business, when in fact business has made everything possible. This Zoom call, everything that we rely on came from the resolve, the determination, the effectiveness, the power of people in business. And to attack that it just didn't set well with me. So I made a public commitment right then and there, and I was tears are streaming down my face. And I got a standing ovation before I said this for my talk. So I realized the audience was friendly to me. So then I didn't, this wasn't calculated, but just happened. I stood there and I said, I commit to all of you here to defang the business community for the activist community, and defang the activist community for the business community, and bring us together, because we need each other. We need each other to work on the big, huge issues that face us. I mean, global warming, everybody needs to get on that team. Everybody. Nobody can not be on that team. Poverty, war, all of this. We need everybody on the playing field working together, not shooting at each other, moving forward with the same vision. And so I made this bold, I stood up there and made this bold commitment. And I was, tears were streaming down my face. And these, mostly gentlemen, a few women, stood up and gave me this like standing ovation that just knocked my socks off. And then I realized I had to do it. So afterwards, I met with the guy named Bob Chapman. Have you had him on your program?
We haven't had him on the program yet. I did get a chance to meet him at the Leaders Forum recently, so we hope to get him on very soon.
He blows me away. So after
he's amazing gentleman.
After I did this talk, and then their big standing ovation, and I was crying, and I got a few other people crying in there too. There was a break, and after the break, Bob and Raj came and talked to me and said, let's work together. And also Jack Canfield, who was there, who convened the whole meeting. And then some other people probably you've had on your program, who really, something happened there for me. And something happened there beyond just me. Something happened there. And it's from that, that's what I'm using to answer your question, because after I made that commitment, just like when you make a commitment, the world starts to reorganize itself to help you fulfill it. I've gotten much more opportunities to talk to people like the two of you and the audience for this wonderful program. People who are running companies consciously, people who want to transform the very metrics that business is a slave to, that will allow them to look at the long term. People who want to find a way to treat their employees like their family. People who want to get out of the ways that business has sort of over-oriented itself towards the bottom line. And so I've been useful to people in business. And then to go back to the Awakener at Pachamama Alliance, we started a business engagement team. And we said, how can we bring the enormous wisdom of Indigenous people and what we're learning from them about the environment, about social justice, about bringing meaning to life? How can we bring that into business? How can we engage business? How can we contribute really to business? And so we invented the Awakening the Dreamer Symposium, which turned into this program called the Awakener, where we go into a company, and it's not designed to transform the company. It's designed to awaken the people inside of the company, and then they do what they do. And so it's not only are we eager to bring the 2 hour, it's only 2 hours long, so it used to be 7 hours, we got it down to 2, into companies. We're also eager to take executive teams to the Amazon, because when executive teams go to the Amazon and sit in the forest, in the presence of our Indigenous brothers and sisters, in the place where there's no roads, where there's it's absolutely pristine, where there's more species of birds within a 5-mile radius of the lodge where we stay, a beautiful lodge that is built for us, than all the birds in North and South America. I mean, just amazing extreme experience of the beauty of life. It changes the way you think, and to be that far out of the box of the place where you work and the to-do list you have and the emails you got to answer, and to be offline. Even offline is a lot, but to be in the rainforest offline, it's transformational. So that's what I've been recently so excited about. And, you know, it's hard to get people to drop what they're doing and go to the Amazon. So that's not so easy. But it isn't that hard to have people consider bringing the Awakener into their company. And it does wake you up. It wakes you up in a way that you don't feel wrong. You feel inspired. It takes you from despair, really, or let's say denial, if anybody's in any kind of denial, up to despair, which sounds terrible, but it's kind of good. And then up through despair to grief, oh my God. And then up through grief to anger, who's not minding the store, and then up through anger to responsibility. And we don't leave anybody in any of those places. To responsibility, which is so freeing. And then through responsibility to inspired, committed action. And no matter where we are on the spectrum of consciousness, everybody's in a little bit of denial somewhere along the way. So it's a very, very, very powerful and useful program, even for people like you, Emmett, who worked in at the EPA. We delivered it at the EPA. And they were like, oh my God, all kinds of new, not new information really, but new insights. Really receiving from the heart. So I feel so grateful for that question, because it makes me realize I kind of forgot that that's really where I made that commitment and how it's served me ever since.
Incredibly inspiring, thank you. And an incredible challenge to see a light when there is incredible darkness, to see love when there's a lot of fear. These are real challenges. I grew up certainly in a world where being competitive was the target, to win in us versus them. And frankly, things have gotten worse and not better in many of the environments that I live and work with, namely the United States to start with. My question was practical, this idea of defanging. I imagine that the first step is I have to take my fangs off before I can ask you to take yours off.
Yes.
So do you have a story that you could offer us of this transformation that maybe somebody you have seen being able to do, to move from what's in it for me to how can I cooperate, love, and live with all life in this planet? Any thoughts about somebody that stood out for you in your work that made that transition and in a very practical way, so to speak?
Well, there's thousands and thousands of examples, because that's what our work is. So, you know, we have millions, maybe hundreds of thousands of stories. But I'll just say, when I think back on a man I took to the rainforest, who went reluctantly because his girlfriend, he was divorced and was dating another woman that had, you know, found her way to him. And he was an oil man. He was from Texas. His name was Jerry. And he was in his 60s, and he'd been in the oil business his entire life. Now, when you work in the Amazon rainforest, the big danger for that forest where I've been working for 25 years is oil. That's the big danger. That's a big threat. Both Ecuador and Peru are, half of their economy is based on oil. So they are absolutely, totally wedded to the oil industry. That's where people make the most money, just like here. And there's millions and zillions of barrels of oil under those forests, but there's no roads. And the indigenous people absolutely do not want oil exploration in their territory. And this man, Jerry, went to the rainforest on a Pachamama Alliance journey reluctantly, because he was trying to, I think, woo his girlfriend, who was already his girlfriend, but he was trying to, you know, tie the knot, I think, with her. And she got him to go. So he gets down there. And we have a meeting with the indigenous people, the leaders of the Achuar tribe. We were visiting the Achuar people in their territory in the very, very remote part of the rainforest, right on the equator, at the Kapawi Lodge, which is this very, very beautiful place, very remote but exquisite place. And we had the opportunity to meet with the Achuar leaders. They came in really because some of the leaders of Pachamama were with us, my husband Bill and John Perkins. And so we sat in front of the leaders, and they told us their biggest danger was oil. And they started sharing the tactics of the oil companies. That's called community development, but it's actually another way of looking at it, depending on how you're looking at it, bribery and coercion. And they talked about how people were being offered outboard motors and college educations and for their children, all kinds of special perks if they would vote for opening up that part of the Amazon to oil exploration. And then they talked about the kidnapping of a child. It was a really, really tragic story of one of the Uwa children, a 4-year-old, disappeared. And the whole tribe were thinking that he had been hurt by an animal, and they started searching the forest. And when they left the area where they were meeting to search for the child, the Occidental Petroleum people came in with equipment. They went on a month search for this child. So they left their village, or where they were having this meeting. Actually, it was a longhouse. And the Occidental Petroleum people came in and poisoned the well where they were living. And it turned out later that they had also kidnapped the child, who they eventually returned. But in order to get in and poison the well, which made it impossible for the Uwa to live there any longer, and they had to move, and Occidental moved in and started drilling there. And these stories, story after story after story, that the Achuar were telling about the tactics of oil companies. And my new friend Jerry was sitting there. He was in the part of the oil business, I don't know the terms, but he wasn't one of the people exploring for other places. He was doing it right there in Texas. And he was selling to the big oil companies. And he was so shocked. And I don't know, ashamed is probably also true of the tactics of his industry with indigenous peoples of the Amazon, that he went back and became one of the leading spokespeople for, he didn't get out of the oil business, but for transforming the oil business so that it was a clean, moving towards clean energy. And he went to the Shell lab in London, what's it called? The Scenarios Lab, and met with them. He went to a big meeting in Toronto of oil companies to try to influence the Canadian oil companies. He just became this huge champion for shifting the oil business and out of fossil fuels and getting into new kinds of energy. So he's an example. And he took the Awakening the Dreamer program also, and then he started leading it. And he started delivering it inside of his own company and other oil companies in Texas. So he's an example of someone who, he didn't just change his company. He started to change his whole industry. I can tell you 100 stories like that. It's just amazing. And you know this too. When we start to see where we've been unconscious, and we start to bring that into the light, and everything turns out better. You know, the company ends up making more money, like the Interface Carpet example, which everybody knows. I knew Ray Anderson before he passed away. That was all because of his granddaughter. You know, when we really connect with our own humanity, anything that's inconsistent with that starts to show up as off, and then we want to correct it. So that's one story. There's many others, but thank you for asking.
And that was a wonderful, though, exemplifying what you said earlier, despair to anger to responsibility. I definitely would have had a hard time between despair and anger. But moving to, because it's such a terrible, terrible story in terms of darkness, and to be able to take it and move into responsibility is very heartwarming. Thank you.
Lynne, hearing that story, it made me think of you know, in a lot of the work that Valeria and I involved with, working with teams, and this concept of collaboration, especially when we might be on a team or working with people who we had no idea that there could be any opportunity to work together. And that made me think of one of the quotes from your book. I think I wrote it here: collaboration creates prosperity. There are no haves and have-nots. We are all halves, and our assets are diverse. In the alchemy of collaboration, we become equal partners. We create wholeness and sufficiency for everyone. And just the story of that transformation happening to one of, okay, we're now in collaboration with each other to create this new world, not only for the business, but the impact it has outside of our immediate worlds. And so maybe as we're wrapping up here, would love to hear sort of what your vision is. I mean, this is the piece that you've shared with us, the beautiful collaboration between the pro-activision work. I love that phrase, the pro-activision work that you've been such a rich part of. And now the business community, the business world, what is your vision of what that collaboration can really look like, whether that together or just as the direction is moving forward? Would love to hear that.
Yeah, well, I think it's something that we all want to invent, first of all. So I don't have the silver bullet answer, but I know that collaborating is the way through. I'll just say a couple things before I in answer to that question, I guess. One of the things I've learned from the forest is that competition is there, absolutely. Plants compete for sunlight, they compete for water, and animals compete for you know, the predators compete with one another. But the species, both plant and animal, that survive are the ones that collaborate, And the relook at even Darwin's theory and his beautiful books, David Loy has not rewritten Darwin, but analyzed Darwin. And what Darwin was really saying was not survival of the fittest. He really was saying all the way through the book, survival of the collaborative. And so that is the way through for our era, I think. Community, communion with the natural world, communion with each other, community inside of companies to make your company a community rather than a hierarchy. You know, obviously there needs to be lines of responsibility and communication, but to recognize that it's in the collective, it is in collaboration, it is in generosity with one another that will make it through this period. And this huge challenge called global warming. We have a program at Pachamama Alliance called Drawdown, which is based on Paul Hawken's book. And Paul Hawken was a very successful businessman, as you know, who became an ecologist and author, and now is one of the leading thinkers and innovators in the world on global warming. And he wrote a book called Drawdown, really proving with years of research that we can reverse global warming. We created it and we can reverse it. Now it's going to take a huge, unbelievable effort that will need to be multi-sector and unbelievably collaborative and cooperative to do it. The odds are huge, but let's take them. We don't have an option to not take those odds. And Paul says this beautiful phrase. He says, maybe global warming is not happening to us. Maybe it's not something to be at the effect of, to try to mitigate, to try to slow down, to try to stop, to be afraid of. Rather, it's happening for us. It is spectacularly powerful feedback from the mother, from Mother Earth, for the children to play together, you know, for us to collaborate. We cannot get through this without doing that. There's no question. And doing it, we can get through it. So I would say for business and what is primarily called the activist community, and I like to call it proactivist community. The passion that's in the proactivist community, the knowledge, the deep knowledge of the natural world and the environmental world that you've been in the EPA, the deep knowledge of effectiveness and how to really make the bottom line work, which is important, that business is so skilled at, and the what to measure and what not to measure, and to put these two worlds together, to me, is just, it's like my dream. And it's the new dream for humanity, I think. And so I want to invite everybody listening to bring the Awakener into their company, or invite us to at least let you know about it. I want to invite all of you, the two of you that I can see on the screen and the people I can't see on the screen, to come to the Amazon with the Pachamama Alliance. I want to invite all of you to understand that the sacred headwaters region of the Amazon rainforest, this southern part of Ecuador, northern part of Peru, which is about somewhere between 60 and 100 million acres, inhabited by 14 to 18 tribes, is the mother lode. It is the source of life. It is the most biodiverse place on earth. It is the source of the whole Amazon system, which is the hydrological heart of the world and the lungs of the planet. And we can come together to preserve that for in perpetuity, put it in permanent protected status. And it will take business to do that. It will take governments to do that. It will take collaboration unlike we've ever seen before, but what I say we're ready for. And that is the source of the new prosperity on earth. Rather than financial wealth, the prosperity that comes from collaboration, generosity, and working together. There's nothing so satisfying as working together and having a win together. Not at the expense of someone else, but all of us advancing everything together. And I think the sacred headwaters, that's my agenda, so I, of course, have to get it in there. But even if it's something else, even if it's like Tom's Shoes or Warby Parker, these organizations that build right in the beginning of the company benefit to people less fortunate, and that make that part of their business model. This is the new future. This is the future. It's already here. And to know that any business worth its salt, I mean, you used to have to apply to become a business to show that you were doing something that would benefit society. And then those rules kind of changed. But I think to bring that back, not only as an ethical and moral cornerstone of business, but to make it the culture of business, which we all know culture kind of trumps everything. If we make it the culture we're living in, that great businesses, the ones that are truly admired and the ones that truly succeed, are collaborative, cooperative. They're making a huge difference in the world. The people in the company are well taken care of. They know they're making a difference. They can feel the power of their lives mattering, and that they're born and at work at the most important time in the history of our species, where the choices we make impact the future of life for 1,000 years. And rather than that being a burden, that ennobles our life and gives us the opportunity to live the most meaningful lives any generation of humankind has ever lived. So that's, I think, the most exciting thing about being alive right now. And one of the things we say in our programs, and I'll say to you, the job in business, the job in life, is to hospice the natural death of the structures and systems that no longer serve us. They're dying, they're unsustainable. All we need to do is hospice their natural death. We don't need to kill them. With respect and dignity, they will die faster, those systems and structures, while we midwife the birth of the new structured systems that we now understand are much more healthy, or much more consistent with the sustainable long-term future of life and the health and well-being of each other, our children, our communities, our families, and the health and well-being of all children of all species for all time. So it's a time of midwifing and hospicing, which is really all about love. It's all about love. And when it comes right down to it, fear is not the opposite of love, it's the absence of it. So when we're afraid, when we bring love into that picture, we can get through anything. So global warming, not happening to us, but for us, happening for us, really engendering the leap that we need to take as a human community, and engendering the leap that we need to take and must take in the business community. So those are some of the things I think.
Lynn's so eloquent, thank you, and way past my expectations of offering that bridge to making businesses a force for good. Definitely not only rekindled, I think you energized that part of me that sees it as a possibility and encourages that possibility. I'm really grateful. And I really love the fear is not the opposite of love, is the absence of love. That's very, I remember that for a long, long, long time. Thank you, Lynn. And any suggestion of where our viewers might go to find out more, hear more about this incredible opportunity to make a significant difference, perhaps like never before for humankind?
Oh my God, well, thank you for that. Well, the Awakener is what I hope everybody will pick up on is, I think, awakener.org, I'm pretty sure, might be .com, but I think it's .org, Awakener, AWAKENER, just like it sounds, awakener.org. And then Pachamama Alliance, PACHAMAMA, that means Mother Earth, PachamamaAlliance.org. And then my website is soulofmoney.org. We have all kinds of wonderful programs, Soul of Money, to help people really calibrate their relationship with money so they're not overtaken by it and not at the effect of it. And then just to thank you for your generosity, letting me say all these things and asking me such beautiful questions. I also want to promote conscious capitalism, which you probably are already doing, but conscious capitalism, now that I'm on board, I want to make sure everybody who is awake enough to realize how great it is to be a conscious company to join conscious capitalism. And then finally, I'll just say the privilege that it is to do this work and to do it with people like the two of you and Raj and Kip, and to really come to know business myself. My small boutique business, the Soul of Money Institute, is boutique is probably an overstatement. It's very small, but we feel mighty, and we coach people to really understand their relationship with money in a way that they can be more effective in their life and have peace and freedom in their relationship with money. We do courses online, and we do courses for people of wealth and people who can't make ends meet. And I think once we realize that money is not the be all end all, we invented it, we made it up, 4,500 years ago to facilitate the sharing of goods and resources rather than to hoard them. Once we release our grip, our money's grip on us, we'll find our humanity again, and all the institutions of humankind will be of the ultimate service. So thank you so much for having me on your program, asking me such beautiful questions, and doing the work you're doing. I'm on your team wholeheartedly, 100%.
We're all together, and thank you so much, Lynn. It's been such an honor. We'll be sure to include those links and resources in our description and whatnot. So definitely the viewers, the listeners will have a chance to visit those again. So thank you again, Lynn, and thank you to our listeners. Thank you to our viewers. So grateful to have Lynn and share her beautiful stories. And thank you for all of you who are out there continuing to do the meaningful work as well that we all need to be a part of. So my name is Amit Riker, my co-host Valeria Pascotto, and this is the IGEOS Show. Thank you again. We'll continue to have these amazing conversations with amazing people, creating an extraordinary impact, not only in the workplace, but in the world. Until next time, take care, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. We have many more exciting thought leaders to come on this show. If you enjoyed this interview, please click the like button and also subscribe so that you can stay tuned to learn from other powerful thought leaders in future shows. We would also appreciate your comments and feedback on the show, as well as who else you would like to hear from. And don't forget to visit our site, IGEOS.net, to download the free worksheet on the 5 disciplines of a high performance team. See you next time.